Okay, so today I'm going to talk about guilt. And guilt is a trickster, right? It's something that we hold on to because we believe that we deserve to suffer. It's something that we hold on to because I think in A Course in Miracles it says something like guilt is an attempt to purchase salvation, right? And so if we've ever done anything deceptive in our life, which most of us have, I believe, if we've harmed ourselves, if we've lied to others, if we've been in any kind of experience of addiction, whether it's an addiction to lying, an addiction to drugs, right? Anything that may have harmed our family or people in our lives. The most important thing to understand about addiction, in my opinion, and I'm not an addiction expert, I'm not a licensed healthcare professional, I'm somebody who experienced addictive an eating disorder, and I'm reporting to you the only thing that truly helped me go beyond it was love. And what kept me stuck in it was guilt and the belief that it was wrong, and the belief that I was wrong and that I should be somewhere else and that I should be beyond this behavior, that it's immature, that, right, all these critical, condemning thoughts about myself. And it can feel really slippery because if we are engaged in anything like that, we believe that if we are kind to ourselves, that we're giving ourselves permission to continue. But that's a lie. That's the biggest lie, okay? The truth is that, like, let's say there's a range of vibrations, right? Let's say there's like apathy, depression, or shame, guilt, rage, whatever. I don't know what the order is, but let's say this is the range of addiction, right? This is the range. And as long as we remain in this range, and guilt keeps us there, right? Because even though guilt is above shame, if you, in the universe of guilt, right? Let's say this is the universe of guilt. And when you're looking through the eyes of guilt, you're like, well, yeah, what I've done is fucked up. Yeah, I'm lying. Yeah, I cheated on my wife. Yeah, I did drugs. Yeah, I messed up my family. Yeah, I messed up everything. I messed up my whole life, right? That's the kind of conversation we could tend to get into, because in one way we're trying to be accountable for our actions. But if we remain in that story, and if we remain in that guilt, and if we remain in the constant attempt to try to improve ourselves from a belief that we are inherently messed up pieces of shit, we're never going to be free. So I'm talking to anybody who is stuck in that range, right? And what could that look like? That could look like addictive behavior. That could look like endless self-improvement. That could look like spending all of your money on self-improvement, right? But yet at the end of the day, you just don't feel good about who you are. Your world is getting smaller and smaller, right? You're not willing to be around many others. It's almost like you don't want to expose yourself to life. And I'm not talking about this natural phenomenon that happens in, spirituality, where you tend to become a recluse for a period of time in order to kind of reassemble yourself. I work with a lot of people who are stuck in guilt, and this is what it looks like. Sometimes it looks like they break out in behaviors where they start hitting themselves or pulling their hair, right? I'm so bad, I'm so bad, I'm so bad. Okay, so and honestly, when I work with them, they have this strong belief that, like, yeah, I'm a cheater. Like, yeah, I'm unfaithful. Like, yeah, I am a guilty piece of shit. That's who I am. And what I'm here to tell you is that remaining in that dialogue and remaining in that belief keeps you doing the deceptive behaviors, keeps you deceiving, keeps you in addiction. Because it's only within that range of energy that you behave in that way, right? So when you deceive someone you love, that's shame moving, right? When you go, drink your feelings away, like that's guilt moving, right? So you're in this energy range and those energies are moving through you. And the only way to go beyond them is love. Love is the universal solvent. Love is the universal healer. And it feels so wrong in a way to love ourselves when we know there's this kind of separation in us where we have an idea of what being good is, and then we have this observation of ways that we've behaved. So it's like, for me, I had an eating disorder, and I shared the anecdote of, I read an article that this woman said, she was a psychologist and she also had bulimia. And she was like, I tried everything, did every method, every spiritual thing, right? She was still in the idea that she was wrong and trying to improve herself, trying to fix herself. And she didn't overcome it for 18 years. And one day she said, okay, what if I'm bulimic for the rest of my life? Can I still love myself? Can I still love myself? And that's the day that she began to heal. And of course, that was all a healing process. It's all one, right? But that was the day that the behavior started to let go of her, because the behavior comes from a level of energy that she was keeping herself in by remaining guilty, right? So in my life, that looked like, okay, me trying to control that behavior, and then slipping back into it, and then getting really sad and getting in despair and feeling like, why am I doing this to myself? I had already been through cancer. How can I do this to myself? Right? This really critical part of myself condemning this other part of myself that was stuck in this behavior. So of course, what is the antidote to division is unity, right? Which is love, which is, okay, it is what it is. Like, this is how I've figured out this is how life is moving, right? This is how I figured out how to deal with certain emotions. This is how my body figured out how to do it. It is what it is. I'm not bad. I'm not a bad person because I had that behavior. And I'm here to tell you that no matter what behavior you had, no matter if you've lied, if you've cheated, if you've stolen, it doesn't matter if you've killed, right? It doesn't matter. Like, guilt is not going to purchase you salvation. Guilt is going to keep you vibrating in a range where you're going to keep doing those things, and it's going to perpetuate your addiction to guilt. And again, like, we don't want to let go of guilt because we believe that if we let go of it, like, oh, then we're going to be free for all chaotic lunatics. And it's actually no. Like, what makes us lunatics is keeping ourselves locked in guilt and shame, right? We've all heard that phrase, only hurt people, but how are you hurting yourself? Like, how are you hurting yourself? What are you criticizing within yourself? Even if your part of your mind says, well, yeah, I do lie all the time and that's wrong. Like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. What matters is that you stop condemning yourself for it, so that you can go beyond it if that's what you want. Again, I work with a lot of people, and I find these really guilty selves within them, and they don't want to let it go because they believe they deserve to suffer, right? This is another deep belief that creates reality. I deserve to suffer because I am guilty. I am guilty because I was unfaithful. I am guilty because I did drink and destroy my child's life. When the truth is that you are life. Like, you aren't separate from your child, and you co-create your experience with all of life, and people draw experiences out of you, and your children choose you. And it's like, when you contemplate like the nature of reality, it, like, condemning yourself doesn't even compute. It's like, oh, like, wait, I'm not even a separate self that could be at fault for something. And people are afraid that if they see that truly, and some people could use that thought to excuse horrible behavior. That, sure, the ego can do anything. The ego can use spiritual ideas to perpetuate its behaviors, but I'm talking about love right now. Like, if you've had a spiritual awakening, but maybe parts of you are stuck in certain thoughts and feelings and behaviors, like, see it clearly and feel your heart. Like, see, like, you know, it could be helpful to also say out loud, like, even just to yourself, like, oh my God, I am completely incapable of telling the truth. I lie all the time. I don't know how to tell the truth. I feel like if I tell the truth, everybody will hate me because I believe on some level that I'm unlovable or despicable. Like, just saying this to yourself will remove a layer of like resistance. And the truth is that, like, why do we ever lie? Why do we ever lie? Because we're trying to control people. We're trying to control reality. We're trying to control how people receive us, perceive us. And if you stop lying, that means you have no illusion of control of how people will react to you. That's another place where we assume where life will get more chaotic if I'm real and honest with what is for me. When the truth is, like, haven't you noticed when people are real with you, like, there's just this liberation energy, like, okay, all right, we can work with that, right? You can't work with lies. You can't work with lies. You can't work by lying to yourself. You can't work with that. You have to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest, like, wow, I do feel really guilty about stuff that I do. Maybe I stole money from, I don't know, someone. Maybe I was unfaithful in my marriage. Maybe I have a big secret that, maybe I know that I'm uncomfortable in this marriage and I am acting out and sabotaging it by cheating or lying or being angry at my partner, when the truth is, like, I'm miserable and I'm acting out. Like, being honest with yourself, it begins to create this freedom dialogue inside of yourself, which gives you the opportunity to be able to accept it. And accepting it doesn't mean accepting that you're bad. Accepting it just means, like, you no longer deny it. You're no longer trying to keep it hidden from yourself. Love embraces everything. Love embraces everything. Love moves towards it's the parts of itself that don't yet know who they are, right? So if you've had an awakening and you still have this momentum, maybe you're being deceptive, maybe you're still in addictive behavior, like, that's part of you. It's part of you. It's not separate from you. It's part of life. Like, life is showing up as that deception, as that behavior, as that addiction. Like, go towards it, like, embrace it. Okay, like, say okay to it, right? What's the alternative? The alternative is keeping it hidden from yourself, making it wrong, running away from it, denying it, evading it, avoiding it, and then remaining in the range of shame and guilt, where all of the behaviors that make you feel even guiltier and more shameful, they all emanate from that vibrational range that you're keeping yourself in by your continuous condemnation of yourself. It can be tricky to, when you hear, like, your self-talk is everything. Your self-talk is what creates your reality, And some people just find themselves so despicable, whether it's because they did something that they feel bad about, or whether it's because of deep religious conditioning or a message they got from childhood. Like, they are unwilling to stop condemning themselves. And if you can find that, right, if you can be honest, like, how is that showing up for me? I remember at the beginning of every time at the beginning of my like psychological awakening, every time I had a reaction, like, I would meditate for longer, right? Or it was almost like I found it unacceptable. There was still this attitude of, like, my reactions are unacceptable. I hadn't yet fully gone into them, embraced them, let them be there. I was still avoiding them at some level. And so that would show up by me doing more, like, meditation practices, right? That doesn't mean that every time you meditate, that's always what you're doing, but I saw it. I said, oh, okay. So part of me is finding that the fact that I still have human emotions unacceptable. And so I feel like I need to fix it. When the truth is like, no, you go into it, okay, I'm still enraged. Oh, like, let's feel that heat. Let's breathe with it. Let's let it consume me. Let's let it move. Let's embrace it, right? So yeah, like, I've seen over and over with the people I've worked with, it's like incapability of, they can't forgive themselves, which forgiveness in its truest sense is realizing you could have never done something other than what you did. You couldn't have. But what's the point of continuing to feel guilty? You're actually, what you're doing, what you're setting yourself up for is more behavior that will make you feel bad about yourself. You're setting yourself up for more suffering. You're setting yourself up for more deception. You're setting yourself up for more chaos. You're setting yourself up for more, getting yourself tangled up in, an egoic mess. Like, it's actually arrogant in a way to, and this is from experience, right? From my own arrogance, seeing my own arrogance. Like, okay, it's actually arrogant of me to assume that, like, that bulimia behavior is separate from life. Yeah, this is part of life. Addiction is part of the human psyche. Deception is part of the human psyche. This is part of me. This is myself. Like, let me embrace it. Let me embrace it, not to change it, just to stop keeping it separate from me, right? Just stop making it wrong. Stop making it, stop telling myself a story like that it's unacceptable. No, it's not. It's not. But what happens is the more and more and more, because we are wired to avoid what we determine is bad, it just gets nastier and nastier, right? The more we condemn ourselves, actually the worse we behave. The people who are the most hurtful have the lowest self-esteem. So having worked with myself, having worked with a lot of people, having loved many people with addictive personalities, I've learned that, like, love is the only way through. Love is the only way through. It can be so painful, right, to have moments of sobriety or even awakening, right, this clarity of the perfection of all that is and the love that is you and truth, and then to go back, to contract back into that kind of thought, feeling, and behavior. But the only way to bring that part into alignment, and it's not from an attitude of self-improvement, there is no separate self. It's from the attitude of love and embracing. It's from the attitude of including. Nothing else makes sense to an awakened state. Nothing else makes sense, right? It's determined to be futile, to exclude anything from myself. So you allow it. And you allow it mentally by no longer making it wrong. Okay, so no matter what you've done, no matter what you have done, okay, let it go. That's the only way that you'll ever stop doing those things. It's the only way you'll ever be happy. It's the only way you can ever create anything new. And we're all freaking human. We're all human, right? We all have our own iterations of how we've hurt other people. There's no reason, there is no value in guilt. It will never purchase salvation, right? So that's my message for today. I have a lot of compassion for people, for all people, but like for people who have struggled to transcend addictions, right? It really takes some deep, like a deep seeing of reality and a deep decision to love oneself. And it can be hard because we're so conditioned. Like, people are afraid of addicts. People are afraid. Even the word addict, I feel, is so fucked up. Like, so I hope that I energize something positive in humanity with this message. I love you. Have a good day.